Hey everyone, Fletcher Ellingson here. Welcome back to Your Life Is Now. This is where we reveal and discuss the unseen forces that influence your every thought, decision, and action. This is where we discuss how to give up wishing and start actively creating the life of your dreams. It's where we develop courage and compassion, where we learn to be a source of contribution and take 100% responsibility for our life. I want you to experience your own power, and together, you and I, we get to make this world a better place. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, welcome. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that we're in this conversation together. Years ago, I decided to play a new game. It's been the most fulfilling game I've ever played. It's full of challenge, reward, adventure, surprise, fun. It can be thrilling, scary, and like all games, it can have disappointment too. I want to stress first off that I said I decided to play a new game. You see, I believe we're all playing different games that we've decided to play. And what happens is that we forget we are playing a game. We forget so completely that we forget we have options of ending the game, changing the rules of the game, changing the players in the game. We just forget. And we end up living our life as if the game that we're playing is reality. Now, some people play a game called Life is Fair or Unfair. And one of the objectives of the game is to look for ways that life is unfair. And when you find them out, you point them out and tell everyone about it. That's unfair. That's not fair. She's not fair. And each time you do it, you forget more that it's a game, and soon you actually believe that life is unfair. Work becomes unfair. Your marriage, unfair. The sporting events, the refs, unfair. The government, oh my gosh, so unfair. The price of goods, can you believe it costs that much? So unfair. The educational system, so unfair. You know, it's easy to win at this game. There's very little challenge to it. The game, however, leaves its players bitter and frequently make unfavorable company. Even amongst their own friends, there are frequent fallouts as they see each other and their behaviors as, yeah, you guessed it, unfair. Now, there's another game called Life is Fair, and people in this game consistently seek to balance out what is unfair with fairness. And players of this game oftentimes have noble causes as they attempt to create fairness in their relationships, workplace, etc. And there's certainly nothing wrong with this game. In fact, there's nothing right about it either. As you hear me say a lot in this, many times on this show, I'm not a big fan of viewing things as right or wrong, good or bad. Rather, the question is, does it serve my life? Does it serve my community? Does it bring a level of workability to the situation? And does it add beauty instead of create suffering? You see, what's interesting about the people playing the fairness game is that they're actually playing two games. They have one foot in the game of creating fairness, but in order to do that, they have to have one foot in the unfairness game. You see, they're still looking for the unfair situations to which they can bring fairness. In my book, this game is a little more interesting. It serves people a little better, and it's still a tiring game to play. And there's a lot of disappointment. And the success of the game is very much dependent on the outcome. Furthermore, in the game of fair or unfair, victims and perpetrators are required. Let me say that again. In the game of fair or unfair, victims and perpetrators are required. There must be a winner or loser, so to speak. There must be someone who has been harmed or wronged, and someone or something which has caused the harm or been the wrongdoer. I believe that most people are playing the game Life is Fair or Unfair. And I would again state that in these games there is a very high price to pay. Someone must always be wrong. Someone must always be a victim. Someone must always be an aggressor. Now here's the important question. In your game, who are you most likely to cast as the wrongdoer? Who are you most likely to cast as the person who is unfair? Is it you? Not likely. You see, we are masters at justifying everything we do. Everything we do is usually to protect ourselves. So if we're not the wrongdoer or the perpetrator or the unfair person well, then who does that leave? Well, when it comes to work, it means your employer or your manager or your coworkers. What about with your parents, your mom or your dad? If you're playing the game that life is fair or unfair, then you have to make one or both of your parents the wrongdoers, the ones being unfair, the ones causing your anguish. What about in your marriage? Oh boy, that's a big one, right? Who in your marriage is going to be the one that causes your upsets? Who will be the one to hurt, to do wrong? Can you begin to see that in this game, many of the players with whom you're going to interact, they're doomed to fail. Doomed to fail in your eyes because someone has to be wrong. Someone has to be unfair. Someone has to be causing your upsets. Now, we're only halfway through, and you may have already jumped to the logical conclusion, but if other people in your life are unfair and are causing you harm or upset, what does that make you? It makes you the victim, the recipient of all the unfairness and the harm, the wrongdoing, the upsets. You are a victim, and other people in your life are the cause of your suffering. And to be a victim, you have to give up your power. You must give up your responsibility for your life. You see, a victim only has blame and the pity given to them by others with more power. The pity and attention may feel good in the moment, but it's short-lived. And hence it's the reason why the victim has to continue with the game to attract more attention and more pity, because they have given up all their power to create a fulfilling life that's not dependent on the approval of others. In this game, there are only victims and those unfair people who victimize. You can now see that this game serves no one. There are no winners. Is this the game you want to play? Is it the game you want to teach your children? Realize that if you teach this game to anyone and invite them to play, then you only have one option. They, in your game, will be the oppressor. They will be the wrongdoer, the deliverer of harm, and you will be the victim. Now, if they're playing the game in their game, you become the wrongdoer and the deliverer of harm, the perpetrator. You can see that there are no winners in this game. And now the final bit of information about this game called Life is Unfair or Life is Fair. The final information may be shocking when you realize who chose this game. Who agreed to play? Who agreed to play by these rules? Well, you did. And in doing so, you agreed to view other people as mean. You agreed to view them as unfair, unsavory, as the perpetrators, as the oppressors, as people who would take advantage of you, as people who had low standards, questionable values, and would stoop to actions that would bring harm to you. If you really set this in motion, aren't those people then the real victims? After all, they really don't have a choice in how you view them and how you label them and their behaviors. You see, if you don't give them a chance, they have no options. You cast them as this part in your movie. You can see now that you are the responsible party for creating all of the unfairness you frequently experience. You put this in motion. And don't get me wrong, I've done this. I do it. I catch myself doing it. Now, when you disagree with that you're the person who put this into motion, when you stand up and shout or pound your fist on the table to object, it's because that you're steeped in the game. You forgot it was a game, and you live as though it's real, as though it is the truth. Now, the game is not without values, and so I invite you to get the lessons of this game. The lesson that it's a game which doesn't allow for any winners. It's a lose-lose game that leaves you and others disempowered. It's a valuable lesson. Get the cost of living like that. And then what I invite you to do is to play a different game. Remember, you made that other game up. You can make another one up. This game is called Life Is. And in this game called Life Is, the rules of life are the following. Life reflects that which I say and that which I create, and I experience that which I say and create. One of the games I love to play, and it's served me really well, is that I live a life of massive abundance. And this is a really fun game. Let me give you an example. And in this example, you can see that I can easily fall back into the game of fair and unfair. You know, we travel to Hawaii every year, Maui specifically. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I love it there. And sometimes just my wife and I go, and other times we take the entire family. And we have a big family. And when I went to check out prices for flights and added up the cost, I experienced some sticker shock. I started to think, dang, why do they have to make the price so expensive? Why can't it be more reasonable? And then I caught myself. I was playing the fair, unfair game. So I reminded myself of how my life really is. And here's how it really is. My family gets to ride in a comfortable car to the airport. We get to drive on paved roads, roads that people paved for us. We didn't have to build these roads. We don't have to maintain them. And sure, I pay taxes that go toward the construction and maintenance of those roads, and I'm happy to do that. But we didn't build them. When we arrive to the airport, we have a huge parking lot that we can park and leave our car in it and know that it's pretty safe, right? A shuttle drops us off from the parking lot at the terminal, right at the front door. We go into this massive airport. It was built for us so that anytime we want to fly anywhere in the world, we can. And in the airport, there are shops and food courts and entertainment to make our waiting more enjoyable. And then we board the plane, a plane that was, by the way, built for us. We didn't build it. It was built for us, and we're able to sit comfortably while the attendants take care of us and serve us food and drinks. We can read or watch movies or listen to music while flying through the air at over 500 miles an hour. This incredible machine. There are skilled pilots on board who can fly the plane and navigate it across the ocean and land safely on a dime. And then we land and we have shuttles waiting to take us to our rental car, and then we check into our luxurious accommodations. Wow. I remind myself, this is the kind of life I have. Abundance and access to whatever I want. How incredible is that? I have supermarkets filled with food wherever I go, because there are people all over the world working for me, so that if I run out of something at home, it's just a 5-minute trip to the store where I have access to pretty much whatever I need or whatever I could want. Again, all of this was made available to me. I didn't grow the food, I didn't harvest it, I didn't transport it. The game I am playing is that I live a life of abundance. I live a life of massive abundance. I have parks and lakes and rivers and sunshine and beautiful hills around where I live. We just pretend it's all for us. We have access to it. We don't have to pay anything for it. No, it's built into some of it's built into our taxes, but it's so little compared to the value that we get out of it. We have the internet, knowledge, endless opportunities, and people with whom I can connect. I can tell you this, it's a much more exciting and fulfilling game to play than life is unfair. My cup really is overflowing, spilling over. It's abundant. And as I play that game, just like the other game, the more you play it, the more you forget it's a game. And it becomes your reality. And I love losing myself in that type of reality. And those are just a couple examples, but I feel tremendously blessed in my life. And so I focus on life is abundant. There's gold dust in the air. There are opportunities galore. And I want to ask you, what game of life are you playing? Does it serve you? If not, what game of life do you want to start playing? Is it an adventure? Is it a comedy? Is it an exploration, a journey? It really starts with your imagination and what you focus on. So spend time imagining and creating in your mind the life you want to experience. That's where it begins. That's why Einstein said imagination is more valuable and more important than knowledge. All right, that's it for today. I know that's a lot to take in, but really give it some thought. What kind of game are you playing? And what kind of game do you want to play? And if you want to talk about this more, and if this video has value for you, then please like it, share it, subscribe to my channel, and you can find out more about me and more about working with me and other free resources at my website. It's at www.fletcherellingson.com. Now, it's time to get out there and be a source of kindness, be a source of contribution. You have value, you matter, you have something to offer this world, and I believe in you.